As long as there's been people, there's been art. And it's not always been cooped up in a museum or in a gallery, it's been here, out in the landscape around us. Now when you think of Neolithic landscapes, you might think of Stonehenge, you might think of Kilmartin Glen, or the heart of Neolithic Orkney. But for many of us in Scotland, they might be a bit closer than you think. The eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed my lockdown haircut, and we're still locked down here in Scotland. So I've come just a short hop from my home, to outside Ratho, to Tormain Hill. Some of the most important spaces for Neolithic people are the liminal spaces, space in between spaces. So between the land and the sea, between the earth and the sky. And so outcrops like this are some of the most key places to find Neolithic remains. Tormain Hill is an outcrop of igneous rock. Harder than the surrounding sedimentary bedrock, it was left standing out above the landscape as the glaciers carved away through the central belt over 14,000 years ago. At 140 metres above sea level, the views stretch all the way from Edinburgh, across the Firth of Forth and to the Ochil Hills to the north. But there are some very specific parts of this rock that I've come to see today. Now these have got to be some of my favourite Neolithic designs. They're known as cup and ring markings. And you can see why all these depressions across the surface are the cups, and they're surrounded by these rings. The biggest one here is about 7 centimetres across, with 4 incomplete rings going around, ending in another cup and ring on either end. It's such an aesthetic design. It reminds me of Van Gogh's Starry Night. Recent dating puts them roughly at 3000 to 2500 BCE, which means they've been sitting carved in this rock for almost 5,000 years. While over there in Edinburgh, you can just about see Arthur's Seat behind me. The world kept on turning. You find cup and ring markings scattered all across the British Isles and Ireland, and even the odd example as far flung as Italy and Spain. There are 7 carved rocks here, first properly documented by Sir James Simpson in 1867, but have always been part of the community since they've been created. Superstition and suspicion around prehistoric monuments can run deep. Countless stones across the country have been lost to those fearful of the Sidhe and the spirits and the dark forces that surround them, and to landowners who'd rather not have to divert their ploughs. And sadly, Tormain Hill has suffered at the hands of such a vandal. The largest of the stones stood somewhere in this field here. It was known as the Witch's Stone and was blown up at some point between 1900 and 1910. It stood 8 feet high with 22 cut marks running up its surface in a slightly kinked line. It would have been a massive monument in the landscape. One of the great mysteries about this spot is, why is it here? On this rocky outcrop, it's certainly a liminal space between the land and the sky, commanding great views over to Edinburgh, across the Firth of Forth to the Ochil Hills in the other. The Witch's Stone would have made it visible to anyone approaching from the north. It's very important as a spot, but as a religious space, as a meeting space, we'll never know. Let me know what you think in the comments. We can start the discussion. Today, it's a spot to sit, pause, and reflect. I'll see you next time.